When HOA President Margaret locked 5-year-old Emma in a dark storage shed for riding her bike, she thought she was teaching a lesson about rules. 3 minutes later, police sirens wailed through the neighborhood. Margaret had no idea she just destroyed her own life and united an entire community against her. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The sun was shining bright on Maple Street, and 5-year-old Emma Rodriguez was having the best day of her life. She wore her favorite pink dress with tiny flowers and matching hair ribbons that her grandmother had sent from Mexico. Her dark eyes sparkled with joy as she rode her small bicycle up and down the sidewalk in front of their house. "Mommy, look how fast I can go," Emma called out to her mother, Sophia, who was watering the flowers in their front yard. Sophia smiled warmly at her daughter. After working double shifts as a nurse for 3 weeks straight, this Saturday morning felt like heaven. The HOA meeting from last night was still fresh in her mind, where she had finally gathered the courage to speak up about the playground equipment that had been broken for months. "Be careful, mi amor," Sophia called back, adjusting the sprinkler near their rose bushes. Emma pedaled faster, her little legs working hard to keep up with her excitement. She was practicing for the neighborhood bike parade next weekend, where all the kids would decorate their bikes and ride through the community park. That's when Margaret Thornfield appeared. Margaret was the kind of woman who made other people uncomfortable just by existing. At 62, she had made it her life's mission to control everything and everyone in the Willowbrook community. Her gray hair was always pulled back in a tight bun, and she wore the same beige cardigan every day, like a uniform of misery. She marched across the street with her clipboard, that cursed clipboard that had caused so much trouble for so many families. "Excuse me," Margaret's voice cut through the peaceful morning like a rusty knife. "That bicycle is not regulation size according to HOA Guidelines Section 4.7.3. Sophia looked up from her flowers, immediately feeling her stomach tighten. Here we go again, she thought. "Good morning, Mrs. Thornfield," Sophia said politely, trying to keep the peace. "Emma is just practicing on the sidewalk. She's not bothering anyone." "The sidewalk belongs to the community," Margaret snapped, scribbling something on her clipboard. "And that bicycle exceeds the maximum wheel diameter allowed for children's recreational vehicles in common areas." Emma stopped pedaling and looked between her mother and the scary lady with confused eyes. She didn't understand the big words, but she could feel the tension in the air. "Mrs. Thornfield, with all due respect, she's 5 years old riding a bike made for 5-year-olds, Sophia said, walking closer to her daughter protectively. "Rules are rules, Mrs. Rodriguez. Perhaps if you attended more HOA meetings, you would understand the importance of maintaining community standards." Sophia felt her cheeks burn. She had attended the meeting just last night and had been attending regularly for months, trying to make positive changes for all the families with children. "I was at the meeting last night. I'm the one who brought up fixing the broken swings, remember?" Margaret's face twisted into a sour expression. She didn't like being challenged, especially by someone she considered beneath her status in the community. "That's irrelevant. I'm issuing a citation for violation of recreational vehicle guidelines. The fine is $50. $50? Sophia's heart sank. After paying for Emma's new school supplies and the car repairs last week, $50 might as well have been $500. "Can I keep riding, Mommy?" Emma asked innocently, not understanding why the mean lady was making her mother upset. "Of course, baby. Ride carefully," Sophia said, refusing to let Margaret intimidate her daughter. Margaret's eyes flashed with anger. She wasn't used to people ignoring her authority. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I am ordering you to remove that bicycle from community property immediately." "She's in front of our own house," Sophia protested. "The sidewalk is community property. I have the authority to enforce HOA regulations." Emma continued riding, staying close to their house. She had been looking forward to this practice session all week, and she didn't want to stop. The bike parade was so important to her, all her friends would be there. Sophia stood her ground. "She's not hurting anything. She's just a little girl having fun." "Fun that violates community standards," Margaret said coldly. She pulled out her phone and started taking pictures of Emma on her bike. "Stop taking pictures of my daughter," Sophia said firmly. "I'm documenting violations for the HOA board," Margaret replied, snapping several more photos. Emma noticed the lady taking pictures and felt scared. She had been taught about stranger danger, and this felt wrong. She pedaled faster toward the backyard, wanting to get away from the scary woman. But Margaret had other plans. "Young lady, stop right there," she called out to Emma. Emma looked back at her mother with frightened eyes. Sophia was walking quickly toward them. "Emma, come here to Mama," Sophia called out. But Margaret was faster. She positioned herself between Emma and the path to the backyard, blocking the little girl's way. "I need to inspect that bicycle for safety violations," Margaret announced. "You will not touch my daughter or her bike," Sophia said, her voice rising for the first time. "I have the authority to confiscate recreational equipment that poses a safety hazard to the community." "What safety hazard?" "She's riding a normal bike." Margaret ignored Sophia and reached for Emma's handlebars. "Little girl, I need you to get off that bicycle right now." Emma started crying. The mean lady was trying to take her bike away, and she didn't understand why. "No. I want my mama," Emma cried, trying to pedal away. But Margaret grabbed the handlebars firmly. "I said get off. Don't touch her," Sophia shouted, running toward them. In the struggle, Emma lost her balance and fell off the bike, scraping her knee on the concrete. She wailed in pain and fear. "Look what you did," Sophia screamed, scooping up her crying daughter. "She wouldn't follow instructions," Margaret said without any emotion, as if a hurt child meant nothing to her. Sophia examined Emma's scraped knee, which was bleeding slightly. Her daughter was sobbing and shaking with fear. "You made her fall. She's hurt. Maybe next time she'll follow HOA regulations," Margaret said coldly. Sophia couldn't believe what she was hearing. This woman had just caused her daughter to get hurt and showed no remorse at all. "I'm calling the police," Sophia said, pulling out her phone. "Go ahead. I'm the HOA president. I have authority here." Sophia dialed 911 while holding Emma, who was still crying and clinging to her mother. Margaret smirked and walked away, but not before adding, "The fine is now $75 for non-compliance and disrespectful behavior toward an HOA official." 20 minutes later, while Sophia was inside cleaning Emma's scraped knee and trying to calm her down, Margaret struck again. Emma had finally stopped crying and wanted to go outside to get her bike, which was still lying on the sidewalk where she had fallen. "I'll get it, baby," Sophia said. "No, I can do it. I'm a big girl," Emma insisted, wanting to prove she was brave. Sophia watched from the window as Emma walked outside and picked up her small bike. The little girl was still sniffling but trying to be strong. That's when Margaret emerged from behind the community control shed, a small building where the HOA kept lawn maintenance equipment and community supplies. "Young lady, I told you that bicycle was confiscated," Margaret called out. Emma froze in fear. The mean lady was back. "I'm getting my mama," Emma said, starting to walk toward the house. "Not so fast," Margaret said, stepping in front of the child. "You disobeyed a direct order from an HOA official." Emma didn't understand the big words, but she knew this lady was mean and scary. She tried to walk around Margaret, but the older woman kept blocking her path. "I want my mama," Emma said, her voice small and frightened. "Your mama isn't here to save you from following rules," Margaret said cruelly. Sophia was in the bathroom getting the first aid kit and couldn't see what was happening outside. Margaret looked around and saw that no one else was outside. The neighbors were all inside having lunch and Sophia was out of sight. "Come with me, little girl. We're going to have a talk about following rules." "No," Emma said, backing away. "I want my mama." "Your mama should have taught you better," Margaret said, grabbing Emma's arm. Emma tried to pull away, but Margaret's grip was strong. The woman dragged the frightened child toward the control shed. "Let me go. I want my mama," Emma screamed. But Margaret ignored her cries and opened the door to the shed. It was dark inside, filled with lawn mowers and garden tools. "You'll stay in here until you learn to respect authority," Margaret said, pushing Emma into the shed. "No, please. I'm scared of the dark," Emma sobbed. Margaret slammed the door shut and turned the heavy-duty lock. The shed was designed to keep expensive equipment safe, so the lock was strong and the walls were thick. Emma pounded on the door from inside, crying and screaming for her mama. "Let me out. Please. I'll be good. I want my mama." But Margaret walked away, satisfied that she had finally taught someone a lesson about respecting HOA authority. Inside the shed, Emma was terrified. It was almost completely dark except for a tiny bit of light coming through a small vent near the ceiling. She could smell gasoline and oil and there were scary shadows everywhere. She cried and called for her mama, but the thick walls muffled her voice. Sophia came outside 5 minutes later, expecting to see Emma playing with her bike. Instead, she saw the bike lying on the ground again, but no Emma. "Emma? Emma, where are you, baby?" Panic started rising in Sophia's chest. Emma never went anywhere without telling her. "Emma, this isn't funny, come out right now." Sophia ran around the house, checking the backyard, behind the garage, everywhere she could think of. Emma, she screamed, her voice echoing through the neighborhood. Mrs. Chin, their neighbor, came outside. Is everything okay, Sophia? I can't find Emma. She was just out here getting her bike. Other neighbors started coming out, hearing the commotion. When did you see her last? Asked Mr. Peterson from 2 houses down. Just 5 minutes ago. She was right here. Sophia's hands were shaking as she called Emma's name over and over. Every parent's worst nightmare was coming true. That's when she heard it, a faint crying sound coming from somewhere nearby. Mama, help me. The voice was muffled but definitely Emma's. Emma, where are you, baby? I'm in the dark place. The mean lady locked me in. Sophia followed the sound and realized it was coming from the control shed. She ran to the door and tried to open it, but it was locked. Emma, are you in there? Mama, I'm scared. It's dark and smells bad. Sophia pulled on the door handle with all her strength, but the industrial lock wouldn't budge. Don't worry, baby. Mama's going to get you out. By now, several neighbors had gathered around, all trying to help. Who has a key to this shed? Sophia asked desperately. Only Margaret Thornfield, said Mrs. Chin. She's the HOA president. Sophia felt rage building inside her chest. Margaret had locked her 5-year-old daughter in a dark shed. Someone call the police right now, Sophia said, her voice deadly calm. Already calling, said Mr. Peterson. Also call the fire department, added Mrs. Chin. They can break the lock if needed. Inside the shed, Emma was still crying and calling for her mama. The smell of gasoline was making her feel sick, and she was terrified of the dark shadows around her. Mama, I can't get out. I know, baby. Help is coming. Can you move away from the door? Go to the back of the shed if you can. Emma felt around in the darkness until she found the back wall. She pressed herself against it, still crying but trying to be brave because her mama told her to. 3 minutes later, 2 police cars arrived, followed quickly by a fire truck. The officers immediately assessed the situation. Ma'am, can you tell me what happened? Officer Martinez asked Sophia. Margaret Thornfield, the HOA president, locked my 5-year-old daughter in this shed. Emma's been trapped in there for almost 10 minutes. Is the child injured? I don't know. She's scared and it smells like gasoline in there. Officer Martinez spoke into his radio while his partner, Officer Johnson, examined the lock. The fire captain, Captain Rodriguez, no relation to Sophia, approached with bolt cutters. Stand back, everyone. We're going to cut this lock. Emma, baby, there's going to be a loud noise, but don't be scared. The firefighters are going to get you out. Okay, Mama, came Emma's small voice from inside. The bolt cutters made quick work of the lock. The moment the door opened, Emma ran out and threw herself into her mother's arms. Mama, I was so scared. The mean lady pushed me in there. Sophia held her daughter tight, tears streaming down her face. Emma was shaking and smelled like gasoline and motor oil. You're safe now, baby. Mama's got you. Officer Martinez knelt down to Emma's level. Hi, sweetheart. I'm Officer Martinez. Can you tell me what happened? Emma looked at her mother, who nodded encouragingly. The mean lady grabbed my arm and pushed me in the dark place. She locked me in and walked away. What mean lady? Officer Martinez asked gently. The one with the clipboard. She made me fall off my bike and hurt my knee. Officer Johnson was taking notes. Ma'am, I need to get a full statement from you about what led up to this incident. Sophia explained everything, the bicycle citation, Margaret taking photos, the confrontation that led to Emma falling and scraping her knee, and then coming outside to find Emma missing. Where is Mrs. Thornfield now? Officer Martinez asked. I don't know. She wasn't here when I found Emma. We need to locate her immediately. This is false imprisonment of a minor, and possibly child endangerment. Captain Rodriguez had been examining the inside of the shed. This is not a safe place for a child. Poor ventilation, chemical fumes, and sharp tools everywhere. If she'd been in here much longer, she could have gotten seriously ill from the fumes. Sophia felt sick thinking about what could have happened to her daughter. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood about what had happened. Neighbors who had never spoken to each other before were united in their outrage. I can't believe Margaret would do something like this, said Mrs. Kim from the end of the street. I can, said Mr. Peterson grimly. She's been getting worse and worse with her power trips. This crossed a line, added Mrs. Chin. Locking up a child? That's criminal. Officer Johnson was going door to door, asking if anyone had seen Margaret. Most people hadn't seen her since the incident, but Mrs. Anderson from across the street had important information. I saw her about 15 minutes ago. She was loading boxes into her car, like she was going somewhere. Did you see which direction she went? Toward the main road. She looked like she was in a hurry. Officer Martinez radioed the information to dispatch. Within minutes there was a bolo "Be on the lookout" alert for Margaret's car. Meanwhile, the paramedics arrived to check on Emma. She was physically okay except for the scraped knee from earlier, but they were concerned about possible chemical exposure from the shed. "We'd like to take her to the hospital just to be safe," the paramedic told Sophia. She was exposed to gasoline fumes in an enclosed space for several minutes. Sophia's heart sank. Her little girl had to go to the hospital because of Margaret's cruelty. "It's just a precaution," the paramedic assured her. "But with children we don't take any chances with chemical exposure." As they were preparing to leave for the hospital, Officer Martinez approached Sophia. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I want you to know we're taking this very seriously. We've located Mrs. Thornfield at her sister's house about 20 miles from here. She's being brought in for questioning." "Good," Sophia said, holding Emma close. "This won't just be an HOA matter. She's looking at criminal charges: false imprisonment, child endangerment, possibly assault for the earlier incident where your daughter fell." Sophia nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and anger. At the hospital, Emma was given a thorough examination. The doctor confirmed that she was going to be fine, but the experience had been traumatic. "She'll need to be monitored for any respiratory symptoms over the next 24 hours, Dr. Williams explained. "And I'd recommend having her see a counselor to help process what happened. Being locked in a dark space can be very traumatic for a young child." While they waited for the final test results, Emma curled up in Sophia's lap in the hospital bed. "Mama, why was the lady so mean to me?" Sophia struggled to find words that would make sense to a 5-year-old. "Sometimes grown-ups make very bad choices, baby. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong." "Did I break a rule?" "No, mi amor. You were just being a normal little girl, riding your bike and having fun. That's exactly what you should be doing." Emma was quiet for a moment. "Will the mean lady come back?" "No, baby. The police are making sure she can't hurt you or anyone else." Officer Martinez arrived at the hospital with an update. "We've arrested Mrs. Thornfield. She's been charged with false imprisonment, child endangerment, and assault. She's being held pending a bail hearing." "What did she say when you arrested her?" Sophia asked. Officer Martinez shook his head in disgust. "She claimed she was just trying to discipline a child who wasn't following community rules. She showed no remorse at all." "She actually said that?" "Yes, ma'am. She seemed to think she had the right to lock up your daughter because she's the HOA president." Sophia felt her anger flare again. Even after everything, Margaret still thought she had done nothing wrong. "There's more," Officer Martinez continued. "After we arrested her, several other neighbors came forward with complaints about her behavior. Apparently, this isn't the first time she's overstepped her authority." "What kind of complaints?" "Harassment, trespassing, destruction of property. One family said she killed their vegetable garden with herbicide because she claimed it violated landscaping rules." Sophia wasn't surprised. Margaret had been a problem for the entire community. When Sophia and Emma returned home from the hospital, they found an amazing surprise. The entire front yard was filled with neighbors, and someone had organized a support gathering. There were balloons, homemade signs that said, "We love Emma," and tables full of food that families had brought over. Emma's eyes went wide with wonder. "Is this for me, Mama?" "Yes, baby. All these people wanted to make sure you knew how much they care about you." Mrs. Chen came over with a beautiful bouquet of flowers. "These are for our brave little girl." Mr. Peterson had brought a new bike bell for Emma's bicycle. "So everyone can hear you coming and know that a very special girl is riding by." The Kim family had made Emma a poster with pictures of all the neighborhood kids, welcoming her to their bike club. But the most touching gift came from Mrs. Anderson, the elderly woman who had provided the crucial information to the police. "I knitted this for you," she said, handing Emma a soft pink blanket. "It's for when you need extra comfort." Emma hugged the blanket tight. "It's so soft. Thank you." "You're very welcome, sweetheart. I'm sorry such a mean person scared you today." Sophia was overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. She had lived in this neighborhood for 3 years but had never felt so connected to her community. "I don't know how to thank everyone," Sophia said, her voice thick with emotion. "You don't need to thank us," said Mrs. Chen. "We're family here. When someone hurts one of our children, they hurt all of us." The next few days brought a series of revelations about Margaret's abuse of power that shocked even the neighbors who disliked her. It turned out that Margaret had been using her position as HOA president to line her own pockets. An investigation triggered by her arrest revealed that she had been charging families fake violation fees and keeping the money, awarding maintenance contracts to her brother's company at inflated prices, stealing packages from doorsteps and claiming they were improperly placed, using HOA funds to pay for her personal expenses. The most damaging revelation came from the HOA's own financial records. Margaret had embezzled over $15,000 from the community fund that was supposed to be used for playground repairs and landscaping. That's why our playground equipment never got fixed, Sophia realized. She was stealing the money meant for our children. The HOA board called an emergency meeting to address the crisis. Sophia attended, bringing Emma with her so the community could see the little girl Margaret had terrorized. Board member David Park stood up to address the room. First, I want to apologize to the Rodriguez family on behalf of this board. What happened to Emma should never have occurred. The room erupted in applause. Margaret Thornfield has been removed from her position immediately. All of her actions as HOA president are under review, and any fraudulent fines or fees will be refunded. More applause. We're also implementing new policies to prevent this kind of abuse from ever happening again. No single person will have unchecked authority, and all enforcement actions must be approved by at least 2 board members. Sophia raised her hand. I'd like to volunteer to be on the board, to help make sure families with children have a voice in this community. The entire room stood up and applauded. A week later, Emma had to testify in a special hearing designed for child witnesses. Sophia was nervous about putting her daughter through more stress, but the prosecutor assured her it would be handled very carefully. Emma wore her favorite dress, the same pink one with flowers that she had been wearing the day of the incident. She held her new comfort blanket from Mrs. Anderson. The judge, a kind woman named Judge Patricia Williams, spoke very gently to Emma. Hi Emma. I'm Judge Williams. I have a little granddaughter about your age named Sophie. Do you think you can tell me what happened with the mean lady? Emma looked at her mother, who nodded encouragingly. The mean lady was mad about my bike. She said it was too big, but it's just a normal bike. What happened next? She tried to take my bike away and I fell down. My knee got hurt. Emma showed the judge her scraped knee, which was now mostly healed. That must have been scary. Yes. Then later she grabbed my arm and pushed me in the dark place. It smelled bad and I couldn't get out. How did that make you feel? Emma thought carefully. Very scared. I couldn't see and I wanted my mama. You were very brave, Emma. Is there anything else you want to tell me? Emma nodded seriously. The mean lady should say sorry. And she shouldn't hurt other kids. Judge Williams smiled. You're absolutely right about that. Margaret's lawyer tried to argue that his client had been within her rights as HOA president, but the evidence was overwhelming. Margaret showed no remorse and seemed to believe she had done nothing wrong. The judge sentenced Margaret to 6 months in jail, 3 years of probation, and ordered her to pay full restitution for the embezzled HOA funds. She was also banned from serving in any HOA leadership position ever again. Most importantly for Emma, Margaret was issued a permanent restraining order. She could never come within 500 feet of the Rodriguez family or their home. With Margaret gone, the neighborhood transformed into the community it was always meant to be. The new HOA board, which included Sophia as the family representative, quickly approved funding to fix the playground equipment. Emma was the first child to try out the new swings. The bike parade that Emma had been practicing for turned into a celebration of community spirit. All the neighbors came out to cheer for the children, and Emma rode proudly at the front of the parade, wearing a special badge that said, Neighborhood Hero. Mrs. Chin organized weekly family picnics in the community park. Mr. Peterson started a neighborhood watch program focused on helping families, not harassing them. The Kim family began offering free bike repair clinics for all the children. Emma's scraped knee healed completely, and more importantly, her spirit remained unbroken. The counselor Sophia had taken her to said Emma was remarkably resilient. She's processing this experience as something that happened to her, not something that defines her, Dr. Sarah Martinez explained. That's a very healthy response. Emma still had nightmares occasionally, but they were getting less frequent. And she had learned something important about standing up for herself and asking for help when she needed it. A year after the incident, the Willowbrook community was barely recognizable as the same place where Margaret had terrorized families. The playground now had new equipment, including a special bike track where children could practice safely. There was a community garden where families grew vegetables together. The HOA had a budget surplus for the first time in years because they were no longer being embezzled from. Emma, now 6 years old, had become something of a neighborhood celebrity. Her story had spread throughout the city, and she had been invited to speak at a conference about children's rights. Sometimes grown-ups make bad choices, Emma told the audience of adults standing confidently at the podium. But there are always good grown-ups who will help you. You just have to ask. Sophia watched from the audience, her heart swelling with pride. Her daughter had not only survived a traumatic experience but had become an advocate for other children. The legal case had concluded with Margaret serving her full sentence. She had been released from jail but remained on probation. As part of her sentence, she had to write letters of apology to every family she had harassed, though Emma said she didn't need the letter. "I already forgave her, Mama," Emma had said. "But that doesn't mean what she did was okay." Sophia marveled at her daughter's wisdom. Emma's story had inspired changes far beyond their neighborhood. The city council passed new regulations limiting HOA enforcement powers. A children's advocacy group invited Sophia to join their board. The local newspaper wrote a series of articles about HOA abuse that led to reforms statewide. But the most meaningful change was in their own community. Families looked out for each other now. Children played freely without fear of arbitrary rules. The neighborhood had become what Margaret had claimed to want, a safe, beautiful place for families, but through cooperation instead of intimidation. Emma still rode her bike every day, the same bike that had started everything. But now she was joined by friends from throughout the neighborhood. They had formed a bike club that met every Saturday morning to practice tricks and race around the community. "Remember when the mean lady said my bike was too big?" Emma asked her friend Lucy one Saturday morning. "That was silly," Lucy replied. "It's a perfect bike. Mama says sometimes people try to make problems where there aren't any problems. My mom says that lady was just unhappy and tried to make everyone else unhappy too." Emma considered this seriously. "I'm glad she can't do that anymore." On the 1-year anniversary of the incident, the neighborhood held a special celebration they called Community Day. It was partly to celebrate how far they had come, and partly to honor Emma's courage. Sophia had been nervous about marking the anniversary, worried it might bring back bad memories for Emma. But her daughter had surprised her. "I want to have a party, Mama. Not because of the scary thing but because of all the good things that happened after." And Emma was right. So many good things had come from that terrible day. The celebration was held in the community park, which now had beautiful new landscaping paid for with the money Margaret had been forced to return. There was a bouncy house, face painting, and a bike decorating station where children could add streamers and bells to their bicycles. Emma wore a special t-shirt that Mrs. Anderson had made for her, with "Neighborhood Hero" printed in glittery letters. Judge Williams, who had handled Margaret's case, made a surprise appearance at the celebration. "I wanted to meet the little girl who helped make her community safer for all children," she told Emma. "Do you want to see my bike?" Emma asked. "It's decorated really pretty now. I would love to see it." Emma proudly showed off her bicycle, which was now adorned with colorful streamers, a bell that played music, and spoke decorations that made rainbow patterns when the wheels turned. "This is a beautiful bike," Judge Williams said. "And I think it's exactly the right size for you." Emma beamed. Chapter 15. Looking forward. As the celebration wound down, Sophia found herself reflecting on everything that had happened. A year ago, she had been a single mother trying to keep her head down and avoid trouble. Now she was a community leader, an advocate for children's rights, and an example of how standing up for what's right can change everything. Emma was still the same joyful, brave little girl she had always been, but she had also gained something valuable, the knowledge that she could face scary situations and come out stronger. "Mama," Emma said as they walked home from the celebration, "do you think the mean lady learned to be nice?" Sophia considered how to answer. Margaret had served her time and written the required apology letters, but Sophia doubted she had really changed. "I don't know, baby. But I know that you learned something important." "What did I learn?" "You learned that even when scary things happen, there are always people who care about you and want to help. And you learned that you're braver than you thought you were." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "And I learned that it's okay to ask for help when someone is being mean." "That's exactly right." As they reached their house, Emma ran ahead to put her bike in the garage. Sophia paused for a moment to look at their neighborhood, really look at it. Children were playing in yards without fear. Neighbors were chatting over fences. Families were taking evening walks together. The playground was full of laughing kids. This was what a community was supposed to look like. 5 years later, Emma Rodriguez was 10 years old and the president of the Neighborhood Children's Council, a group she had helped establish to give kids a voice in community decisions. The control shed where she had been imprisoned had been converted into a little library where children could borrow books and toys. A plaque by the door read, "Emma's Library, where every child matters." Margaret Thornfield had moved away after completing her probation, and nobody in the neighborhood had heard from her since. The HOA was now run by a rotating board of volunteers who focused on community building rather than rule enforcement. Sophia had been elected to the city council on a platform of protecting children's rights and preventing HOA abuse. She kept a photo on her desk of Emma at age 5, standing next to her bike with a big smile, taken just weeks before the incident that changed their lives. Emma still had nightmares occasionally, but they were rare now. She had grown into a confident, compassionate child who stood up for other kids when they were being bullied or treated unfairly. "I'm not scared of mean people anymore," Emma told her mother one evening. "Because I know there are more good people than mean people, and the good people will always help." Sophia hugged her daughter tight. "You're absolutely right, mi amor. And you're one of the good people making the world better." Emma smiled. "We both are, Mama. We both are." The little girl who had once been locked in a dark shed for the crime of riding her bike had grown up to be a beacon of hope and courage in her community. And every time she rode that same bike, now decorated with years of memories and adventures, she remembered that even the darkest moments can lead to the brightest outcomes. Because sometimes, when someone tries to dim your light, the whole community comes together to make sure you shine even brighter than before.